أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن
For 3 decades, Malaysia has experienced a slow Islamic revival. In the last year, this revival has accelerated dramatically. Jaslina Hashim is a pop star. She's a Malaysian Muslim but carries herself more like a young Western woman. Until recently, that had never caused her trouble.
Can we go back to the cars? Okay.
Then one night earlier this year, Jaslina stayed out late in Kuala Lumpur's club district. Malaysia's religious authorities sprung a surprise raid on a disco called Zouk. Jaslina was arrested for violating Malaysia's Sharia law.
Suddenly the lights came on, and my friend was like, "Hey, put the light back off." And then I said to my friend, I said, "Don't make a joke out of it, because normally when the lights come on, there's a raid." Somebody went on the stage and announced that Muslims on the left, non-Muslims can leave, but everybody had to show their IC to prove that they are non-Muslim.
It was the State Religious Enforcement Authority, known as the Moral Police. In the past, religious raids were carried out mostly in slums or cheap motels where Muslims were caught committing extramarital sex. They had never hit such a high-profile target. Jaslina's crime was that she was indecently dressed. It was left up to individual officers to determine exactly what that meant.
After all the decent ones have left, there were like 20 of us left in the cell. This guy came up to us and said, "Okay, all of you girls, stand up, all of you." And then, "Okay, you, come here. Okay, twirl. They wanted to see how tight it is, how transparent your top is, how tight your pants are, everything. It's not their job. If they were to do it properly, lady officers should have been doing that.
The Zouk raid was a turning point for religious policy.
They were arrested, they were examined and made to parade in front of the religious officials to ascertain whether the dress they were wearing was decent or indecent. And they were humiliated in that process, they were sexually harassed in that process, and this is not the first time that this has happened.
Zana Anwar is the founder of the women's rights lobby group Sisters in Islam. For years, Zana has fought against the expansion of Sharia law in Malaysia. She was alarmed by the Zouk raid.
Many provisions in the Sharia criminal laws actually overlap with the penal code, violate constitutional guarantees of fundamental liberties, and it really goes beyond the scope of the state authorities to legislate on. And really, this needs to be reviewed, and the whole lawmaking process in the name of Islam in the country, has to be reviewed.
Malaysia's Sharia courts only have power over Muslims, who make up more than half of the nation's people. The Sharia controls family law and a few religious crimes, but there are many Islamic laws which are not enforced. In theory, Muslims can be arrested for not praying 5 times a day, or for drinking alcohol. 2 states, Kelantan and Terengganu, have passed the hudud laws, which call for penalties like the severing of hands for theft, stoning of women for adultery, or death for leaving the Islamic faith. The reason these laws are not enforced is because of a power struggle between the federal government and the religious authorities in the various states.
The leadership of the country is far more progressive. Another arm of the government, the religious authorities, is conservative. So there's always been this conflict. And this is where, it needs to be resolved, because it's ridiculous, that these laws are on the statute books.
many Muslims have defended the Zouk raid, despite the accusations of harassment.
I think the Zouk raid was really a big test case. It really opened up the eyes of many people on the issue of enforcement of Sharia.
Dr. Jamila Mahmood is a Malaysian gynecologist who delivers medical aid in the world's worst crisis zones: Darfur, Aceh, Iraq, and others.
Fever? And stomach pain? While I did not agree with the way some of the enforcement officers behaved, which gives less dignity to the enforcement of Sharia, I believe that it is part of our constitution, it is part of our duties as Muslims to enjoin others to do good and forbid evil.
Dr. Jamila's favorite quiet spot is here in the Islamic Arts Museum.
Muslims used to lead the world in everything, in science, in arts, in architecture.
As a religious conservative, she believes that the authorities haven't gone far enough.
I hope someone will be brave enough to say, if we are going to be, honest about implementing Sharia, then yes, go a step further to say that Muslims are not allowed into areas which have alcohol, or are not allowed to purchase alcohol.
Tan Sri Abdul Hamid Osman is the top advisor to the Prime Minister on Islamic affairs. He denies that the Zouk raid represents a major policy shift.
The rate as established now is not according to the procedures. So the enthusiasm in certain group of workers of people cannot be taken as the policy of the government.
At the heart of Malaysia's Islamic policy is the new Prime Minister, Abdullah Ahmad Badawi. He has just arrived in the state of Kedah to deliver a lecture on progressive Islam. Few people expected that Abdullah Badawi would ever become Prime Minister. But when Dr. Mahathir Mohamad retired in 2003 after 22 years in power, Abdullah's credentials were exactly what his party needed.
His background is a religious and Islamic scholars background. His father was a great scholar, his grandfather, and then his father was a great scholar and politician as well during the struggle of the independence in this country.
Ajaran Al-Quran daripada si prinsipnya dapat ada kekal selama-lamanya. Tetapi daripada segi tafsirannya, tindakannya akan berubah sepanjang masa akan berubah.
Former Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir was seen as being too secular. So in the 1980s, he recruited the popular young religious leader Anwar Ibrahim. For years, Anwar helped to bolster the government's Islamic credentials. But when Anwar became a threat, he was sacked and sent to jail on charges of sodomy and corruption.
And no regrets at all. The law must take its course.
The arrest backfired. In the 1999 elections, thousands of Muslims turned against the ruling party.
The former Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir, had adopted an Islamization policy. And, it became a tiger that he lost control of. It was hijacked, it was redefined, it was defined by others.
By the time Dr. Mahathir announced his retirement, the government's Islamic credibility had been badly damaged. So the new Prime Minister, Abdullah Badawi, decided to redraw the government's religious image. He created his own brand of progressive Islam, Islam Hadari, and won a landslide victory in last year's election.
I think in the end, everything is about how you market things. So I think as a marketing strategy, probably it was very clever to come up with Islam Hadari.
Abdullah Badawi's religious ideas have also been marketed overseas. Malaysia holds the chair of the Organization of the Islamic Conference. OIC member nations like Pakistan have now created their own Islam Hadari campaigns. But back home, Malaysia's ethnic Chinese and Indian population are increasingly concerned about the Islamic revival. This is a tension that the government is keenly aware of. How much impact does Islam Hadari have on your policy decisions?
Well, a lot, certainly. And the Islam Hadari is a guide, actually. It's a strategy that it does not in any way discriminate the non-Muslims, never.
The parliamentary opposition leader, Lim Kit Siang, is ethnic Chinese. He claims he was arrested for trying to keep religion out of politics.
I was arrested 3 years ago for advocating that Malaysia must remain as a multi-religious, secular, democratic nation. And as I said, such advocacy in the first 3 decades of Malaysian nationhood would have raised any eyebrows. Now it is regarded as a bordering on being anti-national, of being un-Malaysian, of being trying to destroy the very fabric of this Malaysian nation. So I think the goalposts are being moved, and I think these are matters of very grave concern.
These days, even Muslims have to practice the state-approved form of Islam. Anything else is considered to be deviant by the religious authorities. In April of last year, almost 100 members of a Muslim sect called the Tarakat were arrested in Selangor. They were accused of practicing beliefs which were against Islam, including bathing in lime juice to cleanse themselves from sin and not praying 5 times a day. Fear of arrest acts like a brake on public debate in Malaysia. So it was surprising when, following the Zouk raid, a forum on the public morality laws was organized in Kuala Lumpur.
The problem is immorality in our society now is rampant.
At the conference, the divide between Malaysia's Muslims and non-Muslims became clear.
I think the real conflict is whether Malaysia is a multiracial country or an Islamic country. That is the basic thing.
They have the right to criticize Islam, but at the same time, they don't have the right to teach us how we are going to practice as a Muslim.
In Malaysia, we have politicized, we have racialized our Islam. Don't demonize us non-Muslims. We will talk about when the Sharia does in fact impact on us, and we will be allowed to do so, please.
I think when I donate blood, my blood may go to the Muslim. When I pay my tax, my money benefits some kampung sekolah agama too.
Zana Anwar was a keynote speaker at the conference.
The question as to what interpretation and understanding of Islam should be law must be open to public debate and public.
But she has no formal religious training. Because of that, many Muslims believe that she has no right to comment on Islamic laws.
Traditionally, we've all been brought up to feel that this is an Islamic matter, and we don't have, as citizens and as believers, we don't have a right to talk about Islam, to question Islam, or even the implementation of Islamic laws, because that would be questioning divine law and questioning God's will.
Islam cannot be interpreted by the normal, person on the street. It has to be scholastic interpretations. It is a religion. I gave this example all the time to friends. We both speak English. I'm a medical person. I can give you an English textbook in medicine, and I can produce a patient and tell you, okay, treat the patient now. And you won't be able to do that properly because you haven't been taught the science of medicine. So it's the same thing with the Quran. There's a lot of science to it. Why it was revealed, what was the history behind each sentence, each verse.
The idea of divine law is a great challenge to Malaysia's democracy. Divine laws cannot be altered by democratic methods. They are based on the idea that sovereignty comes from God, not from the public. The push for divine leadership fueled the 1979 Iranian Revolution. For many Malaysian Muslims, the revolution was a defining moment. Back then, Dr. Mazni Alway was a medical student studying cardiology in Queensland. Today, he is Malaysia's top child heart specialist.
I gained quite a lot in terms of learning about Islam from the Iranian Revolution. I was struck that kind of thing could happen in the second half of the 20th century, that a mullah with a beard and a turban could influence a lot of young people to rise up against the government, and some got killed in the process. So that has a lot of influence among young Muslims, including Malaysians who were abroad at that time.
All done?
Oh, all done.
How'd it go?
Quite good, actually.
Dr. Mazni is the founder of the Muslim Professionals Forum. The MPF is only 1 year old. The group lobbies on behalf of an emerging political force, Malaysia's well-educated, conservative Muslim middle class. The MPF believes that Malaysia's future should be built on the past.
We know that Islam has had its moments before in history, that it has built a civilization which is very well known for its excellence in all branches of knowledge. So I think there is no reason why we cannot emulate even a fraction of that.
We look at that move by people to liberalize Islam because their perception of being liberal is to be westernized. And I think that's a wrong perception. You do not have to be conforming to what Western traditions demand of you to be a liberated human being.
Members of the MPF send their children to private Islamic schools like this one. 30 years ago, there was no Muslim middle class. The Malay Muslims were the poor in their own country. The government has since done everything it can to empower Malays in education and in the workforce. These children are the first generation that will grow up in a Malaysia where Muslims control the balance of economic and political power. The government that helped create this group now has no choice but to cater to its interests.
Always, the middle class of the citizen of the country, they are the main group, represent the main group of the other populations. So their awareness, their understanding is very important, because they are decision makers of the country, because especially in the democratic system like ours.
Malaysia is now at a turning point. Today, Muslims who step outside the state-approved practice of moderate Islam face the threat of arrest. After the Zouk raid, Jaslina Hashim got off on a technicality. A short while later, she married a New Zealander. The law required that in order to marry a Muslim, he convert to Islam before the wedding. He is now bound by all of Malaysia's religious laws.
3, he must not hurt her in any way. Then she has the right to go to the Sharia court and claim divorce by depositing 10 ringgit, Malaysian ringgit, with the Sharia court.
He's still very new to Islam. I think there's still a lot for him to learn, and I won't shove it down his throat at the same time. And he knows where I stand, and I wouldn't marry somebody who wasn't ready to embrace Islam properly.
There are still many Muslims like Jaslina who want religion left out of the courts and out of the hands of politicians as a private matter between themselves and their God.
Well, I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect Muslim. Maybe I don't dress like a proper Muslim should, and I feel like maybe in the future, when I'm older, I want to cover my hair, or when I'm ready, I will do it. But I'm not going to do it because that's what the public asks of me.